very much. We could just go on and on with the kirtan. Today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. We're reading from Canto 2, Chapter 10, text number 7. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Abhasascha Nirodhascha Abhasascha Nirodhascha Abhasascha Nirodhascha Yato Asti Adhyavasiyate Adhyavasiyate Yatostyadhyavasiyate Yatostyadhyavasiyate Sa ashrayaha Param Brahma Sa ashrayaha Param Brahma Sashraya Param Brahma Paramatmeti Shabdyate Paramatmeti Shabdyate Paramatmeti Shabdyate Abhasascha Nirodhascha Yatostyadhyavasiyate Sashrayah Param Brahma Paramatmeti Shabdyate Abhasaha, the cosmic manifestation. Cha, and. Nirodha, and its winding up. Cha, also. Yataha, from the source. Asti, is. Adhyavasiyate, become manifested. Saha, he, with the capital letter. Ashrayaha, reservoir. Param, the supreme. Brahma, being. Paramatma, the supersoul. Iti, thus. Shabdyate, called. This is the translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So the translation. The Supreme One, who is celebrated as the Supreme Being or the Supreme Soul, is the Supreme Source of the cosmic manifestation, as well as its reservoir and winding up. Thus He is the Supreme Fountainhead, the Absolute Truth. Purport. Synonyms for the Supreme Source of all energies, as explained in the very beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, are Janmadhyasya Yataha. And another verse, Vadanti tat tatvavidas tattvam yadgyanamadvayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdyate, called Parabrahma, Paramatma, or Bhagavan. The word iti used here in this verse completes the synonyms and thus indicates Bhagavan. This will be further explained in the later verses. But this Bhagavan ultimately means Lord Krishna, because the Srimad Bhagavatam has already accepted the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Krishna. Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. The original source of all energies, or the summum bonum, is the absolute truth, which is called Param Brahma, etc. And Bhagavan is the last word of the absolute truth. But even with the synonyms for Bhagavan, such as Narayana, Vishnu and Purusha, the last word is Krishna, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Which verse in Bhagavad Gita confirms that? Yes, well, Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo Mata Sarvam Pravartate. Besides that, the Srimad Bhagavatam is the representation of Lord Krishna as a sound incarnation of the Lord. And here Srila Prabhupada quotes the verse from the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 3, text 43. Krishne svadhamo pagate dharma jnanadibhi saha kalo nashta drishamesha puranarko dhunoditaha. Thus, by general conclusion, Lord Krishna is the ultimate source of all energies, and the word Krishna means that. And to explain Krishna, or the science of Krishna, the Srimad Bhagavatam has been prepared. In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, this truth is indicated in the questions and answers by Sutta Goswami and great sages like Shonaka. And in the first and second chapters of the canto, this is explained. In the third chapter, the subject is more explicit, and in the fourth chapter, even more explicit. In the second canto, the absolute truth as the personality of Godhead is further emphasized, and the indication is the Supreme Lord Krishna. The summary of Srimad Bhagavatam in 4 verses, as we have already discussed, is succinct. The Supreme Personality of Godhead in the ultimate issue is confirmed by Brahma in his Brahma Samhita as Ishvara Paramaha Krishna Sachid Ananda Vigraha. So it is concluded in the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The complete subject matter is elaborately explained in the 10th and 11th cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam. In the matter of the changes of the Manus or Manvantaras, such as the Swayambhuva Manvantara and Chakshusha Manvantara, as they are discussed in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Krishna is indicated. In the 8th canto, the Vaivasvata Manvantara explains the same subject indirectly, and in the 9th canto, the same purport is there. In the 12th canto, the same is further explained, specifically regarding the different incarnations of the Lord. Thus it is concluded by studying the complete Srimad Bhagavatam that Lord Sri Krishna is the ultimate summum bonum of the ultimate source of all energy. And according to the grades of worshippers, the indications of the nomenclature may be differently explained as Narayan, Brahma, Paramatma, etc. Srila Prabhupada ki. So we'll read the verse and translation again. Abhasascha nirodhascha yatostya dhyavasiyate sashrayah param brahma paramatmati shabdyate. The Supreme One, who is celebrated as the Supreme Being or the Supreme Soul, is the Supreme Source of the cosmic manifestation, as well as its reservoir and winding up. Thus, He is the Supreme Fountainhead, the Absolute Truth. Om Gyantam Dasya Gyanam Jnana Shakara Chakshura Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Yes. So we finally come to text 7. In the first 6 verses of this chapter, the 10 subject matters of Srimad Bhagavatam were explained. In fact, the introduction to this section actually comes from the previous chapter. As we remember when we discussed how Lord Brahma received transcendental knowledge from Lord Krishna in those 4 verses, the Chatushloki. And then Lord Brahma has imbibed the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam through those 4 verses. He has passed that knowledge to his son. Who is Lord Brahma's son? Narada Muni. Yes. And Narada Muni has been instructed, or was instructed, to expand this knowledge further. So we have 4 verses, 4 Chatushlokis, and we have Brahma who's received this. It's a perfect line of disciplic succession. And as Krishna Rupa Mataji was describing yesterday, there is the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. So we have here the dissemination of the spiritual knowledge coming from the Supreme Lord to Brahma, and after that Narada. And Narada has passed this knowledge to Vyasadeva. So this is how our disciplic succession is organized. And when Narada speaks this knowledge or expounds this knowledge now becomes divided into 10 subject matters. But the division is probably not the right word, because as we know and as we've heard, that all these 10 subject matters, they are in different cantos at the same time. Yet there is a different degree of emphasis. And that's why in this purport, as we were listening to Srila Prabhupada's words, Srila Prabhupada was explaining that in this canto this is described, and that canto that is described, and then combines the cantos, etc. So all 10 subject matters which are presented in Srimad Bhagavatam are in all the different cantos. Now let's see, what are those 10 subject matters? And the most important one out of those subject matters, and perhaps even better to say, is the enabling factors for the other 9 is described in this verse. So what are those 10? Do we remember? Should we do it all together? Yes? Okay, so the first subject matter was the creation, or Visarga. Right. And that is the creation in its subtle form. Right. You have the creation of the different material elements. There is the 16 items, right? The matras, the sound, the touch, the form, etc. You have the creation of the mind, dhyam. Those are the subtle forms of those elements. So that is the sarga. And we can see this sarga explained throughout Srimad Bhagavatam. What's the second subject matter? The subcreation or secondary creation of Visarga. Right? Sarga, Visarga. And Visarga is already creation of the actual bodies of living beings. Right? In the purports it's explained Yatha Yogam. Based upon our qualifications, we get this or that number of those material elements combined in different ways. Some got more of one element, other people got more of another element. But according to our qualification and for the purpose of enabling our activities in this world, we get that Visarga. And Lord Brahma is in charge of that particular creation of Visarga. So that's the first Sarga, Visarga. What's the third one? No, not yet. The Sthanam. Sarga, Visarga, and then Sthanam. And Sthanam is described as the maintenance. Sthanam means the planetary systems. Sthanam is the material existence as such. Now it is interesting that when Shukadeva Goswami explains those categories and explains those concepts, when he describes Sthanam or Sthiti, he says this means Vaikuntha Vijaya. Vaikuntha Vijaya. Now Vaikuntha is, well, it is a spiritual world, but Vaikuntha is also the name of the Lord. And what does Vijaya mean? Victory or glory, right? We usually say Jai Prabhu, Haribol, Jai, Jai. Jai means like glories to you. Very nice, right? Vijaya means very special glory, also means victory. So how come material existence is described by Shukadeva Goswami as the glory of Lord Vaikuntha? Kind of semi-hypothetical question, but if there are some ideas, you guys can volunteer. Yes, Prabhu.
Is facility for Jiva to go back to Yonder?
Yes, and that is what is explained in the purports, and Srila Prabhupada speaks about that as well, that the glory of this sthanam, the glory of this material existence, despite all these difficulties and despite all the frustrations that we experience and pain that we experience in this world, it is Vaikuntha Vijaya. Right? It's the opportunity for the living entities to develop Krishna consciousness and to go back home, back to Godhead. And within this material creation, there are different cycles and different yugas, and we happen to live in Kali Yuga, which is the fourth kind of period, probably the worst according to some. Well, we can see the deterioration of values, we see the degradation which is happening in this world, and yet Kali Yuga is glorified as the best yuga. The best. There is a verse in Srimad Bhagavatam in 11th canto, chapter 5, text 36. It says, Kalim sabhajayantya gunagya sarabhagina, that this age of Kali Yuga is being worshipped, sabhajayanti arya, those people who understand the essence. Gunagya sarabhagina, those people who can extract the essence. Just like the essence of the body is the soul, right? So people who pay too much attention to the body kind of forget the essential thing that you need to pay attention to, which is the soul. The essence of Kali Yuga. What is the essence of Kali Yuga then? Harinam Sankirtan. Thank you very much. So Karabhajan Muni, one of Nava Yogendras, describes this blessing of Kali Yuga being the best age. So welcome to the best age that we have. We are actually very, very fortunate and very, very lucky, because just some 500 years plus years ago, Lord Chaitanya has appeared and introduced the essence of Kali Yuga, or the essential practice of Kali Yuga, which can allow us to develop our Krishna consciousness and return back to Godhead, which is chanting of the holy names of the Lord. Yatra sankirtanena iva sarva svartha vilabhyate, that everything svartha, whatever you desire, can be obtained through sankirtan. Okay, so this was sarga, visarga, sthana, probably the most important one. What's the fourth subject matter? Sthanam. Remember there was the poshanam. And poshanam means protection. Poshanam comes from the word push, like pushnati, to nourish. Right? So Krishna is that protector. This is one of the notes. Thanks. Thank you, friend. And Krishna provides protection to all the living entities in this world. But to some living entities, this is a special mercy. And that is the mercy that Krishna gives to his devotees. So that is poshanam. Poshanam tadanugraha. Then, that's the four subject matters. What's the fifth one? Uti, just before Uti. Oh no, it's Manvantarani Dharma. Not before Uti. There is Manvantarani on Manvantaras. So another subject matter that you can see permeating Srimad Bhagavatam are the descriptions of different manus. And in kind of elaborating on the point of what is Manvantarani, what does it refer to, Shukadeva Goswami says Saddharma. Saddharma means the duty, the description of one's occupational duties. Right? And it is really the advice for us on how to live our life in this world, so that we can ultimately reach Krishna, how to engage our activities in the service of the Lord. So that's Manvantarani Saddharma, and then as Ajita Prabhu said, the next subject matter is Uti, or Utayaha. What does that mean? Uti. The impetus, right? The impetus for creation, or Shukadeva Goswami describes it as karma vasana, the desire for some activity. And we can see it within ourselves. We always do something. There's that nahi kaschit kshanamapi jatu tishtatya karma krit, that not even for 1 second, nahi kaschit kshanamapi, just for a very second, you cannot stop from activities. welcome to yoga classes and trying to stop the activities of your mind. Right? This verse says it cannot be done. Right? You can't stop the activities. You will always be pushed to do this or to do that. So that's Utaya. Yet those activities can be either favorable to Krishna consciousness or unfavorable. So I'm not in any way critiquing yoga, but in a sense it is the understanding of yoga as engaging one's propensity in Krishna consciousness, which leads oneself out of this material world. So that's Utaya. And these are the 6 subject matters. Now what's the 7th one? What's left? Yes. And Ramai Maharaj gave a class on this verse the other day, and in fact the entire verse is dedicated to Ishvaranukatha, or the descriptions of the activities of the Lord and the descriptions of the activities of the devotees of the Lord. Why is it so important? Just some stories. They're very purifying. I think Ramai Maharaj said, well, there's a very big difference. There is a difference. There's not one difference. There's a big difference. Janma karma chame divyam evam yoveti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti sorjana. That just understanding the janma and karma of the Lord, the birth and the activities of the Lord, which are absolutely transcendental. Janma karma chame divyam evam yoveti tattvataha. One who understands them in truth, in reality, that person will not take birth again. So this difference is huge. That's how important is this subject matter, and how Srimad Bhagavatam is complete with the descriptions of the Lord, of His activities and the activities of His devotees. Finally, there are 2 more out of the 9 before we come to verse number 7, and it's 8:15. There is Nirodha and there is Mukti. So Nirodha means dissolution. Krishna Rupa talked about it yesterday. And there is Mukti, another subject matter. Notice, how does Shukadeva Goswami describe Mukti? Who remembers from yesterday's class? Muktir. Yes, Svarupena Muktir Hitva Nyatharupam Svarupena Vivastiti. Shukadeva Goswami describes Mukti as renouncing, or Hitva, giving up, Anyatharupam, all other forms of identification that we have. Right? And Svarupena Vyavastiti, and becoming situated in one's own Svarup, in one's true identity. We have so many identities. I'm an Australian, I'm Ukrainian, I'm American, I'm Indian. Right? I'm man, I'm woman. Shall we go on? I'm old, I'm young, I'm in the 6th grade, no, I'm in 12th grade. I'm advanced, I'm neophyte, and on and on and on and on. So when we are able to give up Hitva Anyatharupam, all these other identities, which are not the true identity of the living entity, right? Then we reach that mukti, Svarupena Vivastiti. We become established in our own Swarup. There's another beautiful verse in Bhagavatam which says that Swamehimni, in one's own glory, then all the living entities will shine. So we become we really shine with that beauty of our own original identity when we give up all the other identities. And the more we impose upon ourselves those upadhis, right, those identities, the less we shine. So that advice for those who would like to shine. And finally, we come to the verse number 7. And this verse is very important because none of those 9 subject matters, they actually are subjects or topics or characteristics that are present in Srimad Bhagavatam matter unless they are connected with Ashraya, or the shelter or the source of those 9. Dashamasya Vishuddhyartam Navanamiha Lakshanam. Those 9 subject matters that we just reviewed, right, they are meant for us to understand the 10th. And the 10th is described in this verse. So here we have abhasascha, nirodhascha. And you know, cha is a really good Sanskrit word. Cha means end. And it usually brings in the other words in the same category. So abhasa is the same as srishti. Abhasa means creation or manifestation. Right? So abhasascha, and then nirodha was discussed by Krishna Rupa yesterday. And you've got two chas over there. So the first cha actually includes sarga, visarga, stanam, poshanam, uti, manvantara, and ishanukata. And then nirodhascha, nirodha means dissolution, and cha was the very last topic, which was mukti. So in the first line, you see how Srimad Bhagavatam really contains all the different levels and expands those kind of meanings. In the first line, we have again all the 9 subject matters described. Abhasascha, nirodhascha, yatostya dhyavasiyate. All of them, they appear yato, from the Supreme Lord. And that is the very first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. And I believe this is the second sutra, or Vedanta Sutra, the Janma Dyasya Yataha. Is that the second or the first? There's a Atato Brahma Jigyasa is the first, right? And then Janma Dyasya Yataha. So from the Lord, all these other elements manifest. Sa ashraya param brahma paramatma iti shabdate. So he is the source. Param brahma paramatma iti shabdate. And he has different names. Srila Prabhupada at the end of this verse, at the end of the purport, describes there's the nomenclature. He uses this very sophisticated word, nomenclature. And the nomenclature of the Supreme Lord of Ashraya can be Param Brahma, can be Paramatma, can be Bhagavan. Now this verse also sounds very similar to another verse that we've learned. Vadanti tat tatvavidas tatvam yajnanam advayam. And in this line you can see how it's very, very similar to the last few words of this shloka. Brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdate. That those people who are learned, they say that the absolute truth can manifest in 3 different forms. Brahmeti means Brahman, right, as the supreme effulgence. Paramatma is the super soul, and Bhagavan, all right. So it's supreme personality of God. So Bhagavan is not mentioned, but Prabhupada explains that the word iti, you have Brahma Paramatmeti. Iti refers to the Supreme Lord, and we can see the same person, Lord Krishna, based upon the different grades of worshippers. These are the words that Srila Prabhupada uses, right? According to our realization. And the most beautiful, of course it's a pastime, but the most beautiful example where you can see Krishna in one place, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Swayam Bhagavan, but at the same time, everyone who looks at Krishna, he sees him in a different way. Where does that happen? No. Probably yes, but there were more people. It says that at this particular point, all 12 rasas, or all 12 ways that one can have a relationship with the Supreme Lord, were manifested at the same time for different people. And there were different groups of people who have experienced that. Rajasu, very close. Say it again? The wrestling arena. Yes, thank you. This is the time where Lord Krishna, still a boy, right, with Balaram and with all the gopas, they enter into the wrestling arena that Kamsa has prepared because he had an evil plan, right? And in this wrestling arena, everyone was called in. You had many different groups of people who came to watch this wrestling match. Like Krishna has entered this arena in a very special way, right? In a very special way. Actually, the day before the wrestling match, these are when all these different pastimes in Mathura have happened. When Trivakra was straightened, Trivakra was a hunch hunchback lady, right, who was selling flowers. Oh, no, flowers or ointments? Sandalwood ointments, yes. Then when Krishna put his feet on her feet and took with 2 fingers her chin and pulled her chin up, and she straightened out, became a very, very beautiful lady. That was kind of a nice thing, but then also there was a thing that Krishna and cowherd boys did. You know how children, when they get together, they end up doing naughty things? Right? I teach in Gurukula, so... So that's the time when the cowherd boys came and saw the bow, because, right, that particular ceremony, the bow was supposed to be strung. And I thought, oh, look, this is such a nice bow. And then Krishna took the bow and strung the bow, but then children tend to break things as well. They actually broke the bow. So that was the day before. And Krishna was very tired, and he took rest, right? That was the night before the arena. It said that he had some kshira and sechanam, some milk and rice, right? So some very nice sweet preparation in the evening, and he rested very, very peacefully, very happily. But someone else didn't have a good rest. Do you remember who that was? Kamsa. And then there's a description in that part of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is really, I don't know if the word mind-blowing is the right word, but how bad was Kamsa's rest? It said he was, sometimes it does happen to us, but I don't think not to the same extent. When we kind of jagrata, we are awake and not awake at the same time. Right? And Kamsa has seen horrendous things. Right. Some of them is seen when he was awake, and some of them he has seen when he was asleep. Right. What did he see when he was awake? Right. You can't sleep, and you get up, and then you go look in the mirror, right? And when he looked in the mirror, he went, ah! What did he see? Yeah, he saw himself. Nice reflection, nice, king's, I guess, nightcloth, because it's nighttime, but there is no head in the reflection. Imagine seeing that. And that wasn't in a dream. In the commentaries it's explained there's 5 things that he saw in real kind of vision and 5 things that he saw, sleeping. Another thing, he started walking around in his room. There was a moon coming through the window, and he looked in his shadow, and what did he see in the shadow? A hole. There was a big hole. Imagine that. Look at your shadow, there's a hole in the shadow. Etc. Oh, then you looked outside, I said, maybe something wrong. You looked at the moon, there were 2 moons. And all stars had doubles. Right. In Bhagavatam is described that these are some of the dautya. They're the messages that, death is coming. So I guess you can pay attention to those descriptive sides. So he saw this thing, and some things he has seen while already falling asleep, trying to force himself to sleep. Some horrible things. Kings, they ride on horses, isn't it? What did Kamsa see himself riding on? Donkey. Karayanam. He started falling asleep thinking, yeah, I'm a big king. And then looked down and said, oh my God, this is a donkey. Etc., etc. Such a bad night. Yet in the morning, that was the plan, to have the wrestling match. So Kamsa has, called all the assistants and all the ministers and everybody, and all the fighters have come in. Yet Krishna had a very nice rest. And Bhagavatam also says there that even though Krishna knew the intent of Kamsa, he knew what was happening, he had no problem sleeping. Right. We need to reach that verse where all these different people are described. But when Krishna entered the arena, right, just before he entered the arena, and I guess it's an important aspect to describe, because how Krishna looked. What stopped him from entering the arena in the first place? Elephant. Yeah, and not just some elephant, it was Kuvalaya Pida. It was a massive elephant. It says Kalantaka. It was as scary as Yamaraj, right? And as powerful as time. For sure, there is one thing that no one can defeat, and that is time. Right. And then Shukadeva Goswami actually uses these words, Kalantaka, but in a sense he uses them to encourage Maharaj Parikshit, who is listening to the story. because from Parikshit it's also the time. Well, Shukadeva Goswami describes this elephant as Kalantaka just to say that, look, Krishna is more powerful than this color. He's more powerful than the aspect of time. And we're not talking about the clock. We're talking about, Krishna's energy, time. Right, so when the elephant was there at the gate, and there's such funny words, you can imagine it, it's Krishna, it's Balaram, and it's all the cowherd boys, and then you have the elephant and an elephant keeper, and then Krishna, you want to show up a little bit, I guess, when you're with your friends. He tells that elephant keeper, he said, quickly, he uses the word chiram, can you just move out of the way, you and your elephant? And then he says another thing, and if you don't, because all the cowherd boys went, oh my God, he's giving the direction to this, Ambashta, I think he's called in Bhagavatam there, the elephant keeper. Then he goes, then if you don't move, then I'll send you and your elephant Yama Sadhanam to the abode of Yamaraj. Right? And everybody goes, ha ha ha. All the cowherd boys laughed. And then when Krishna said Yama Sadhanam, actually has double meaning. One is the abode of Yamaraj, because Yama Sadhanam, but the second place is Yama also means, in yoga you got Yama, Niyama, Pranayama, Pratyahara, you got all these different practices. Ashtanga yoga? Yeah. Yes, the 8 practices. And Yama means control. So the place that you can obtain through self-control, right, is actually liberation. So he said, in one way he said, I'll send you to Yamaraj, but in the secondary meaning, because it actually happened, right, he's given them the liberation. And then what did Krishna do? Of course, it was a beautiful pastime of him really tricking that elephant. Really funny as well, because the elephant had huge legs, right? So Krishna would hide behind one leg. And then we all seen the elephants. Very difficult to move your head, to look where Krishna is. So elephant had to use the sense of smell. Okay, so is he behind the leg? And with his trunk, he was trying to catch Krishna with his trunk. But Krishna is very clever. He would move to another leg and another leg. What would happen with all the cowherd boys then? Oh, they had best of times. They laughed and laughed. But also you get kind of, Krishna's pastimes are Nava-yovana. They're always fresh. There is always something new. There's always something new that he thinks about. The next thing he said, no, this is enough. Right now let's get the elephant to run. Right, elephants can run. But from the point of view of physics, it's very difficult to stop once you have that many tons running. And what Krishna would do, which is very funny, is that he would run and the elephant would charge up to him. And then Krishna would make it look like he stumbles and falls down. Right? So elephant had to quickly stop, and that would trip the elephant, which caused all the cowherd boys to laugh again. And at times Krishna would fall in order for elephant to stick his tusks? Yeah, to put his tusks into the ground. But Krishna is very clever. He would find places where the earth wasn't too soft. It looked soft on top, but with stones underneath. Right? So this has gone on for some time, and all the cowherd boys had a great time. But then at one point, Krishna thought, okay, well, it's the time, because on the arena he heard the sounds of the kettle drums. And he said, that's the time now to... Yama Sadhanam, he has got to go to the abode of Yamaraj, or he's got to get his liberation. Right? And at that time, Krishna jumped on the elephant and then, broke his tusk. And it said, with the tusk, both the elephant and the elephant keeper were killed. And that's when Krishna placed the tusk with the left hand, right? So he actually used the left hand to take the tusk. Right? And then placed this tusk on his shoulder, and he walked into the arena with all the cowherd boys. And then from this pastime of killing Kuvalaya Pita, you had the drops of blood, right, on Krishna's beautiful face. right? You had also the drops of Krishna's perspiration. And it said that at this point, on this arena, you had 10 groups of people who all perceived Krishna in a different way. And I think this is one of the most important points, is that it was not Krishna manifesting different forms. It wasn't that Krishna was the death personified, or Krishna was the thunderbolt. He was the Swayam Bhagavan. He was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's also revealed in that verse in the 10th canto, right? Murtiman, that he was the embodiment of all the other forms. Yet, based upon their realization, these groups of people saw him in a different way. And that kind of points to the fact, in the purports there's also a description there that we see the objects, right, not objectively. We don't see things objectively. We see everything subjectively, subjective to our own realization. And that's important, I guess, for us to understand this point then, because if we understand that, there will be no fighting. Because we understand that everyone sees the reality in a slightly different way. Right? And here they see Krishna, and everyone saw Krishna in a slightly different way. Malanam Mashanir. For those who were wrestlers, he appeared as a thunderbolt. And can you imagine, he's a little boy, right? With very gentle, very sweet, form full of sweetness. Yet, he was as harsh as a mountain for the wrestlers. Malanam Ashanir, Nrinam Naravara. For people in general who were kind of pious people, pious men, it said there, he appeared as Naravara. Naravara means, in Bhagavatam it says best of males, best of men. Right? They saw him as very astonishing personality. Strinam Smaro Murtiman. And for the women, he appeared as Cupid, right? As a personification of Cupid. And that's also where it is pointed out that this means that this was the Supreme Personality of Godhead who walked in. Right? Then you have Gopanam Svajano. For the Gopas, he was Svajana. Svajana means our own person, our own, mate. He was a mate. Right? Asatam Kshiti Bhujam Shasta. For the Asatam Kshiti Bhujam, for all those impious people, right? He was Shasta. Shasta means chastiser. Right? Pitro Shishu. And for parents, he was a little child, a Shishu. Right? Who else do? Oh yes, then after that for Kamsa, Mrityur, right? Bhojapater. Mrityu means death personified. For one person there, he was for surely death personified. Right? Mrityur Bhojapater Virada Vidusham. For the unintelligent people, he was just a materialistic person. Those people who were not actually understanding the true nature or true identity of who Krishna was, they thought, that's the fellow that broke that bowl yesterday, and there was few other stories that happened, took the cloth from the washerman, and etc., etc. So they were a bit critical. Virada Vidusham. Right? And Param Brahma Yoginam, Param Tattvam Yoginam. And for the yogis, like Sanaka, he was the Param Brahma, he was the Supreme Person. And finally, Vrishninam Paradevata. And for Vrishnis, he was their worshipable deity. And of course, in that section of Bhagavatam also, the different rasas are described. The 12 rasas were manifested by those 10, by the group of these 10 people. And that's Ashraya, that's the supreme shelter of all rasas, Lord Sri Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki, Srimad Bhagavatam ki. I think we've run out of time, or there is a minute. Yes, please.
There are some people that don't even see Krishna at all.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe Krishna Kirtan Prabhu can comment. No. When the Lord manifested himself to Lord Brahma at the very beginning of creation. Well, this is I don't know exactly when Lord Brahma has sung Brahma Samhita, whether these prayers were before or after the Lord spoke, but the Chatushloki was at the very start of the creation. Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki.